welcome to this virtual open house. It's really unfortunate I wasn't able to meet you in person, introduce you to the faculty. We usually have a really great open house with a lot of events. We have barbecue, we have music, we have different social gatherings. So we've tried to do our best at replacing that content online in this virtual format. So unfortunately, we can't share a drink together, but I hope you enjoy this. And at any time, if you have questions, I just want to point out, we're probably going to mute most of you just to avoid kind of background noise. But we do have a chat room that's open off to the side. So feel free to ask questions over on the right in the chat bar. And then Uli, Robin, or Julie, who will introduce themselves in a second, will be able to answer your questions. So feel free to ask those questions at any point during this open house. Hopefully everyone's doing well. After the info session, we'll have an extended Q&A. So if we don't answer your question in the chat, not to worry. We'll have a long, kind of more informal session after this one where you can ask questions virtually. So instead of chatting, you can actually use your video and ask questions. And hopefully that's a more informal format after we get through the kind of presentation of the school. So before we get started, I just want to share real quickly the website, which hopefully all of you have had a chance to look at, but I just want to go through it real quick. So we've set up a virtual, see if I can find this, a virtual house website. Is everyone seeing that? So here it is. So if you go to the link that we sent in your emails, we have a little description about the program, also a schedule, basic schedule. We did not include the Zoom links here, so you'll have to refer to Robin's email just to keep the Zoom sessions private. We also have a really wonderful architecture student work Flickr gallery. So you can either just kind of go through this by hitting these arrows, or if you click on it, it will expand into the full Flickr site and you can see a little bit better resolution images that way. You can also, if you scroll down a little bit, see a wonderful video of the 2019 Acadia Conference, which we just held this last year at UT Austin. The Acadia Conference is really like the forefront and premier conference on digital technology and fabrication in the world. And so we had some wonderful keynotes like Tom Main and Dominique Jacob of Jacob McFarlane in France. And so this video kind of is a description and a short film about that conference. And you can see a lot of the School of Architecture and the different facilities in that video. So I encourage you to watch that. Also, we've asked our faculty in this very short window of time to produce very short Zoom kind of interviews of themselves for this open house. So feel free to peruse all of these. I think we have 26 or so of our faculty members and also some associate deans and some staff members as well, doing little short intro videos of their research and their teaching. So it's a really good resource just to get an idea of who we are and what our interests are. And at the end of each video, the faculty have included an email address. And so feel free to email them if you have any questions specifically for that person or about their research or the classes they teach. It's a very friendly group, so don't be afraid to email them. I'm sure they'll answer you. And if they don't, feel free to email me and I'll answer you for sure. Okay, so let me just go ahead and stop that. Before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Corey Beeg. I'm the graduate advisor in architecture. I'm also an associate professor here at the School of Architecture. My interest is in digital design and fabrication. As you'll see from the videos, all of the faculty have very diverse sets of interests. So there's a group of people interested in digital design. There's a group of people interested in Latin American studies. We have other people interested in structures and tectonics. And so really we have a pretty thorough kind of set of interests that the School of Architecture both teaches but also believes in. Okay, so quickly I'll let Uli, who's the program director, introduce himself.
Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you, Corey. My name is Uli Dangle. I'm the program director. And I oversee both the graduate and the undergraduate programs in architecture, and we're kind of by far the largest constituents within the school. I oversee curricular development, and I also oversee faculty teaching assignments, and work closely with Corey with respects to many of these aspects. My research interests are in mass timber construction and kind of low carbon construction. I've published a couple books on that. And again, as Corey was referring to the videos, you can just go and look at that and see what I'm about. I just wanted to say that it is always sunny in Texas, and the sun is always shining, and the sky is always blue, and I mean, I probably can't fool the ones of you that are actually physically in Austin today, but I welcome you all to the virtual open house today, and I look forward to getting to know you a little bit and answering all your questions.
Okay, Robin Dusek.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Dusek. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Affairs. And so with our team, we work with the undergraduate programs, the graduate programs, and career services. And I work closely with our Assistant Dean for Student Affairs, Charlton Lewis. And before this role, I was the graduate program administrator for almost 8 years. So really familiar with the graduate program and happy to answer any questions. And I just want to point out, we were supposed to be eating barbecue right now in our gorgeous courtyard. And so it's a little sad, but it is nice to meet all of you today.
And Julie.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Latcham. I'm the Director of Career Services here at the school. So I really help with employment opportunities for our students. We'll touch on a lot of that more in detail, but like everybody has said, I wish I was here with you guys in person too. And I really look forward to meeting you all. So yeah.
Great, thanks. And the only other person who is not here yet, but will join the meeting later, is Alexa Hatesall. She's been fielding all of your emails, so you've all communicated with her in one way or another. She'll join us a little later, and she is the Graduate Studies Coordinator. Is that right? So she is the one who will answer a lot of your questions during the Q&A as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michelle Addington. She's the Dean at the School of Architecture here at the University of Texas at Austin, and would like to welcome you.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I don't know if I've met some of you at previous functions or previous info sessions. If I have, hello again, and if I haven't, hello to everyone and welcome here. I'm purposely showing an image of our courtyard behind me. You know, we're pretty fortunate in not just sort of in Texas or in Austin or at the University of Texas at Austin, to have an incredibly beautiful set of buildings for our architecture school. We're pretty fortunate in the country. Paul-Philippe Cray designed this particular space as he designed one of the first master plans for the campus. Our buildings are in one of the most remarkable locations on campus. You study pretty much anything else on campus, and you're kind of spread or flung far away, but architecture is right there in the center and the most beautiful part of the Paul-Philippe Cray master plan on campus. And we're actually spread among 4 buildings. Well, 3 of them are incredible. One of them not so much, but 3 of our buildings are the most beautiful buildings on campus. And I wanted to give you a taste of that if you haven't seen that. I think you're going to get a flavor for everything else that we can do. You'll have a chance to meet our faculty today. You're going to have a chance to talk to our students today. We're really excited that one of our most famous alumni, Craig Dykers, the founder of Snøhetta, is going to be joining us today to talk with you. I think you'll get a sense at that point of who we are. You know, so you may not be able to see the place, although we do have, if you look at our website, there's going to be a variety of virtual walkthroughs, so you can start to get a sense of what the facilities are like. what our spectacular library is like, what our tech labs are like, what our classrooms and studios are like. So you can get that from that standpoint, but you are going to be meeting the people today that you'll be interacting with. And I hope you'll also be meeting each other through this today, because for those of you who've studied architecture before, and this is a point at which I normally ask people to raise hands, but that's not going to work quite so much for us, counting them up on the participants list. But for those of you who studied architecture before, what you know is that there is nothing like your cohort of people that you go through this process with. You know, for those of us here who have architecture degrees, which is everybody teaching architecture, by the way, except I think the person who teaches, there's some course on law. We actually have a lawyer who teaches that. But we all have professional architecture degrees, so we are all bound very closely to the people that we studied with, and we will stay that way for the rest of our lives. It's a pretty remarkable, tight-knit community that we're in. What makes University of Texas really special, and what I hope you think about as you're looking at which school that you choose, has to do with the fact that this is the place that some of you may know that in the 1950s was responsible for setting forth through its discourse, through the people that were here, through the writings that came out from the school, set forward the pedagogy that shaped the modern teaching of architecture. The people here who did this were called the Texas Rangers, Harwell Hamilton Harris, Robert Slutsky, John Haydock, Colin Rowe, a pantheon of the greatest names in 20th century architecture were all here in Austin, Texas, when it was a pretty small, sleepy town in the 1950s. You know, this is a legacy unlike any other school in the world has in terms of thinking about that modern pedagogy. We might think about the École des Beaux-Arts and how it sort of shaped much of the beginning of what we thought about teaching in the 20th century, but it was really that group of individuals who were here who went off to various schools, throughout the Ivy League and also throughout the world, that really established very much the way that we teach architecture today. I think what's very interesting now about our school is we like to think of ourselves as setting forward what that next level is going to be in pedagogy. Very, very important to our school is the sense of understanding agency, the impact of what it is that we do. This is very, very different than when I was educated as an architect, when architecture could be, in its purest form, was the line, maybe the plan, but that was considered the essence of architecture. The essence of autonomy in architecture was thinking, that it was an idea. We've had about 40 years of architecture as an idea, and now we're kind of grappling with a lot of the consequences of what we do as architects out there, whether those consequences relate to climate change or as we have to sort of deal with in this very moment right now, our role in designing public space. What is the public experience of the human body? What is the experience of the body politic as it's sort of negotiating what belongs to a larger segment of society? I think it's fascinating, it's horrifying, but it's also fascinating to think that the only way that we're going to have an impact on this virus is actually by, kind of countering the entire idea of what makes public, the idea of proximity, the idea of density, the idea of a shared collective action. That is something that we have now got to be rethinking, and we have to rethink it at our level. We have to rethink it as architects moving forward in terms of what will be that new public space, what will be that new sort of collective, the collective engagement that we can have. I think the part that is actually exciting from this not that don't get me wrong, not that any part of what's going on today is bad. I mean, not, I'm screwing this up, aren't I? Not that any aspect of what's happening today has any good to it, but it does move us further along on things that we had been thinking about for a long time. That as architects, if we are responsible for, two things, if you think about what we design for the body's environment, we design for public engagement. So all of the things we do, those are the two aspects that are tangible artifacts, the things that we actually make, sort of begin to define what is the surround for the body, what is the armature for how the public begins to operate. How do we rethink those? And a lot of what we're doing virtually is part of rethinking those. If we realize that the environment of the body is as much about sensation as it is about the objects that we surround ourselves with, then how do we as architects start scripting or designing for that environment? If we rethink what public engagement is as sort of not in terms of the kind of open spaces or the kind of figure ground that we had been designing for years, but about these sort of temporal moments of how things intersect, how is it that we sort of like create that kind of scaffold to allow it to happen for that? I think these are unbelievably important questions. And even though we're a rather relatively small field, if you think about how few architects there actually are, we're the only ones who can think this stuff. We're the only ones who could actually come forward and lead the world on how we engage with these types of new models for what is that human environment going to be out there. So I look at this and sort of thinking about it as one of the greatest challenges that's ever been put at our feet right now. And it's one that we have to take up. And I think of all the places that can take it up, it's here. And it's here for many reasons. The legacy is one part of it. It gives us an aura that brings gravitas to thinking the name University of Texas at Austin. Everybody in the architecture field knows that great legacy of what happened here. We're a large school, and so not only are we a large school, but we're an extremely large university, which means that we have resources that very few other places can begin to have. We have collaborators and partners that touch every single aspect of the built environment. So here at the School of Architecture, we have interior design, we have architecture, we have landscape architecture, we have urban design, we have community regional planning, we have degrees in historic preservation, degrees in sustainable design, degrees in architectural history. Nobody else out there, well, there's a couple of schools, but very, very few schools have that unbelievable reach across all of these different disciplines. If you think about it, every single scale of the human environment, every single scale of building, every single sort of scale of occupation in terms of what you might be thinking about from a site to an entire territory, but also all the different domains. A domain that might deal with what the entire watershed might look like of a region, what the large transportation networks might be like, all the way down to what happens with community activists who are reacting or being engaged in some of the ways that we think about building. We don't have to sort of like look up that information that somebody else is doing. We're doing it here. We're doing it at our school. Things that are really interesting about the campus, largest academic supercomputer in the world. One of the reasons why our campus is partially open right now is because most of the research going into how we track and model the coronavirus is happening here for the world. And we're kind of lucky for this because as these researchers are doing it for the world, they've also very carefully modeled what's happening in Austin, Texas. For me as a dean, what's kind of remarkable about it is I get a briefing from them every single day. And that's really shaped a lot of the things that we've been doing to protect our students, to protect our neighbors, and protect our faculty on this. There's so many more things I could share with you. And I'm actually going to ask either anyone on here, Corey or Uli, you have some particular aspects that you think might be good for me to share.
I think that was really great, Michelle. I think it's really just to underline the kind of point you made. The nice thing about the University of Texas, it's the flagship university, and so we have so many interdisciplinary research projects happening that do involve students. So right now we have two what are called Bridging Barriers initiatives, which are multi-million-dollar grants that include faculty that are actually run by the School of faculty from the School of Architecture, but engage multiple disciplines within the university. So engineering, biology, computation, all these different fields coming together to solve one problem. So you might know the title of those a little better than I do.
Yeah, so we, I'm so glad that Corey brought this up, because this just totally blows me away. If you've read my bio, you would know that I spent 25 years teaching at Harvard and Yale before I came here. Always there was conversation about how to do interdisciplinary work. And always there weren't any ideas for how one actually does it, other than keep talking about it. Here, the university is so committed to interdisciplinary work that has funded these massive projects, 100 faculty on each project for 10 years. Nobody else is thinking about interdisciplinary work for 10 years and 100 faculty, and of course, many more students, grad students who are involved in it. The first one is Planet Texas 2050 that we're co-leads on. It's looking at Texas as a model for all of the types of changes that this world should be expecting to see. Texas is one of those states that it has extremes. Extremes in terms of the fastest growing population in the United States, as well as in locations that are the ones that are some of the fastest decline in the United States. We have an excess of water, which flooding incidents and hurricanes on the coast. We have some of the most severe droughts as we go toward West Texas. There's a series of things that come about, from the rapidly shifting demographics to the busts and booms of the oil industry that create a set of extremes, conflicts, crises that are all sort of can be examined from a lens of Texas. So not to solve Texas's problems per se, but actually to use Texas as this laboratory to investigate these questions. And so we're leading the project, and much of what we're contributing has to do with questions of sustainability, questions of gentrification, and questions of demographic change, what that's going to do, as well as with our landscape architects taking a very close look at how we're managing water in Texas. We're going to run out of water at some point moving forward. The other one is called Good Systems, which is a very nice title for AI, sort of looking at it in a more gentle way, but how the shift toward the virtual, how a shift toward AI is going to be changing the way that we think and practice many of the things we do. And this is also led by another one of our faculty members. So it's kind of astonishing that comes from the School of Architecture. Our Associate Dean for Research, so I asked the Associate Dean for Research about this, and I said, it's really interesting that you go to architecture for the leads. And his response is, you are the ones, who can think this. You are the ones who have the broader sense of what's going on out there. Your faculty are more in tune with other disciplines than any other discipline or thing that we're teaching here at the university is. And that's really true. about our field. We may not be experts in all that many things, but we know a hell of a lot about pretty much everything else, or at least we think we do on that. I think we're getting close to having Craig join us, and I didn't know if this was a good time for Corey to pick up and do an introduction to Craig, or if you have one more thing that you think I should bring up before I listen to Craig.
No, I think that's great. Craig hasn't joined yet, I don't think.
Okay, no, Craig hasn't joined yet.
Okay.
I mean, the one thing I might want to mention real quickly to kind of build upon what Michelle has said, maybe talk about Austin as kind of the setting for this architectural program in the university. I mean, when I came here about 15 years ago, it was a sleepy town, and Austin has doubled in size every 20 years. And you know, a lot of the graduates and students that we had at our school, they actually had to go to other places and to find jobs. There were some good firms here, but it was a handful of excellent firms. But Austin has obviously experienced tremendous growth, and we have this really substantial design and architecture community that we kind of draw upon as the school, and that's where we draw a lot of our faculty from as well. So a lot of us full-time faculty are practicing architects, but we can also draw from this incredible kind of group of people that practice here in town full-time. That might just be, you know, for crits and reviews, but they, you know, some of them are relatively well-known architects that actually might come in and teach a design studio semester. And to kind of elaborate a little bit on our faculty is incredibly diverse, which I also appreciate. And we're really very pluralistic setup where, you know, we have practicing architects, we have, we have faculty that write about theory, we've some of our history faculty are renowned in their field and are among the most productive. So there's kind of a broad range of different, you know, styles of teachers you're going to get exposed to, and it's really, you know, but again, it's still, you know, architecture is obviously a professional degree, and there's still this, even though we are, you know, we have theory and we have history, practice is obviously plays an important part, and there is this strong connection to the local community and the practice of architecture.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said I really have to agree with that, and it also sort of expands to the fact that most of us are on a first name basis with the mayor, members of the city council, members of the legislature, and members of our representatives in Congress on that. You know, this kind of, as well as engagement with different types of entities, agencies, nonprofits, all throughout this area. We know our city. We're not just doing, a cute design build project in a neighborhood. We're actively involved in pretty much most of the decisions the city is making about its future. And again, I haven't seen another school that's been engaged at that level.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a very big city. It's not a small city in any way, but the way our community connects to each other is in a more kind of small scale format. So for one quick anecdote, when I moved here, Richard Linklater, I met him at a movie theater, just sitting next to him in a movie. He's the one who directed Boyhood, for example. And then Robert Rodriguez opens his studio once a month for people to come and learn hand drawing from his artist in his studio. So this is open to the community. It's something you would never find at like Columbia Studios, for example, in LA, but it's really great. So I see Craig joined us. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to Craig, and then we'll pass the floor off to him. So let me share my screen real quick.
And I just want to thank Craig for having the background of the tower.
Good work, Craig.
I'm actually sitting there. This is, I took up spot right there on the West Mall.
All right, well, we're really lucky to be joined by Craig Dykers. Craig Dykers is a founding partner of the architecture firm Snøhetta, which has offices around the world, including Oslo, New York, Innsbruck, San Francisco, Paris, Hong Kong, and Adelaide. Please take a look at his work and the work of Snøhetta when you have a chance, snøhetta.com. Craig is an alumni of UTSOA and has been an active member in our community ever since. In just the past few years, he has lectured at UT, participated in symposium, and been a visiting professor for one of our advanced studios. One of the qualities of their work that I find truly remarkable and rare is their ability to design projects that are not constrained by a singular approach or tool or technique. Their projects are truly a confluence. They are architecture, they are landscape, interiors, the innovative use of fabrication and technology, as well as exceptional handcraft, socially and culturally aware, and always make good public space. And without taking any credit for Craig's work, I do think these are the same values that we share at the School of Architecture and promote in our seminars and classes. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor on to Craig Dykers.
Well, thank you. That was very kind. Wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping, of course, that everyone is well and healthy and their family and friends are doing fine during these challenging times. It is, of course, an unusual situation that we're faced with. And just to let you know, my practice, first we set aside time to stabilize ourselves and get everyone remotely working and have their mental and physical health taken care of. And now we're focusing on helping others in communities around us. So that's the next stage of our activities. And so there's a lot going on, and trying to keep a business going and manage all those other things is quite tough. So it's a nice break to get to see some fresh faces and some interesting apartments in the background. I think you wanted me to talk a bit briefly about my experiences at the school, which we didn't call UTSOA at that time. I think we just called it the School of Architecture or something like that. We hadn't invented abbreviations back in those days. So it was and how it influenced my practice or my work today. Just to let you know, I'm not alone in this endeavor. I'm married to another alumni, Elaine Molinar. We're kind of having to split up our time a little. She would have appreciated being on this call also, but she's taking some other calls just behind me, just behind the tower back there on the other side of campus. She says hello also. I think both of us feel the same way. We talked about it earlier. One thing we appreciated, many things, but one thing we very much appreciated about University of Texas was the fact that it was a world-class university, and the School of Architecture was embedded in it. The School of Architecture is not a separate satellite or seen as having its own sort of distinct removed presence. It had a beautiful building, which was of course a big plus in a wonderful location, but it always felt like you could go to other schools inside the university, the geology school or the art department or dance or education. I use the education department quite a lot when I was at the School of Architecture. Nearby was the Harry Ransom Center and an amazing collection of photography and art in the museums. So I feel if you're going to be an architect, you will never succeed if you limit your knowledge to just architecture. Architecture on its own is not enough to make great design. You have to have fuel from other things in life. It's a bit like being an author or a person who writes fiction or literature. Just because you have the skills of how to manage grammar or that you have a very large vocabulary doesn't make you a great author. What makes you a great author is your ability to experience life in all of its forms and bring that to bear using the skills you've learned. And I felt, Elaine and I both felt at UT we were able to do that. Also, the size of the town at that time was actually pretty small. It's big now, but back in those days you could still see a cow wandering around, and there were even dirt roads. But although you still find that a bit on the edges of town now, but I remember just driving to Grooney or someplace like that. There was one building and nothing else. But still, it's a small town in many ways compared to big cities in the world. So you can get out and experience other things. That was a very important part of a reason that we found going to school there important. Also, the range of interests by the faculty was very broad. You could find all different ways of seeing your pursuit of architecture so that it wasn't dedicated to one way of thinking. And that was good, not just because not just because that limits your education, but also it was important that you were also not only exposed to other people in the other colleges on the university, but you were exposed to other ways of thinking within the School of Architecture. So I still have friends to this day that I met in school that are very different than me and have done different things. And they've done very well in life. And actually, some of them haven't even pursued a career in architecture in the traditional sense. So I thought that was important. And finally, of course, the facilities are incredible at the university. You have a tremendous shop, people that are really talented to teach you how to work with your hands, in addition to working with your brain and a keyboard. I've always said, at least in my practice, that you don't really think if you're only thinking with your mind. You have to think with your body also. The two things together make you an intelligent being. And at UT, when we were there, you could make things easily. As I mentioned, you could go to the art school and they'd have you make things. You were just, we even made films, and that's why I used the education department at that time. So you got a kind of a way of being a human being pretty quickly. I don't know. There's so many more things, I guess. At first, when I got the little comments like, can you talk about this? I was like, really? What am I gonna? But now that I'm talking, I feel like I could just go on more than my 15 minutes. I do remember Texas being a special place, even though it's got tremendous amount of actually very dreary and dull landscape. It also has a tremendous amount of beautiful landscapes. And I always found time to head out west, go to the Guadalupe Mountains, spend time in the Chihuahua Desert, learning about life in that part of the state, spending a little time around the bayous. And of course, the hill country is quite spectacular nearby. When I was there, I taught myself how to play flute, and I actually paid my way through much of university busking on the streets on 6th Street, collecting money for playing flute. So I got to meet a lot of musicians, and I went out to the Kerrville Folk Festival, and I played with the Thunderbirds and all that crazy stuff, because you could do that in Austin. It's a little harder now, of course, because it's bigger and it's got more pressure, but that I believe is still there. When I go back, I feel that. So maybe some questions or.
That's great, Craig. Thank you. I think one thing that Julie will talk about later is that we have a wonderful residency program, and we have multiple students that take part in this program, and we send students to different firms. And Snowhead has been one of those firms that has been really nice to take a lot of our students on. So we appreciate that. And
yeah, they've all been amazing, and some have gone off to make their own companies and are wildly successful. So that's really cool.
Yes, and I've toured y'all's office. I didn't get to meet you, but it's a beautiful space. So
we can't wait to get back to it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Greg, do you want to talk a little bit maybe about what you like about the UT graduates versus maybe graduates from other schools?
Sure, that's an interesting question. And you should never be too focused on excellence. And say, oh, they're the best ever, and you could never get better than this. I always find that problematic. I know there's some really great things and some things we try to push hard on. The great things are that people that go to the school, first of all, almost always have just a tremendous attitude. They're friendly, they're proactive, they're constructive. Also, they like to solve problems and support. They're really, and by the way, this isn't just me. Almost every studio I've ever talked to, they always say that their UT students are some of the best they get, and it's because they can rely on them. They solve problems. They dedicate themselves to getting things done. Their egos are in check, as well as can be expected for any architect, and they really know they can depend on their people that have gone to UT. The things I like to push harder on, and we've talked about this too, even with the Michelle and others, is that it's important that you push your boundaries, learn how to take risks and how to manage risks. I think taking risks is easy, managing risks is hard. And so this is what I push on. And so when students come to work with us. We try to get them pushing harder on their creative skills, pushing harder on building up their risk taking, because it's a balance. When you're dependable, you're afraid to take a risk, and if you're taking risks, you don't know how to be dependable. So it's a bit of a balance. And so it's always an interesting interaction when we have students from the schools, and it's up to you, by the way, to make that happen as a student. The school does not owe you your personality. All they can do is support you. So when I went to school, at this in UT, and this is why I liked it, they weren't telling me who I should be. Nobody told me who I should be. And so I made myself out of myself. And they gave me the space to do that. And I feel that is why my career trajectory became what it became. It's an outsider thing. I don't have the Ivy League credentials. I didn't work at the big studios. I was not connected. I didn't have money, but I made myself because I felt UT didn't overwhelm me with a didactic.
That's really great. Thank you, Craig. I know you're really busy, so we'll let you go. But we
It
hope
looks
to see
like
you
I have
soon.
5 minutes, right? I have 5 more minutes. I think 1:45.
Yeah, maybe there are any questions from you guys. Feel free to ask Greg.
What's my favorite color?
There's a function where you all can raise your hand. If you raise your hand, we'd be able to sort of allow you to ask, call on you to ask Greg a question.
Okay, you got to use your time. Or I wish I didn't have to go, honestly. I have so many. I'm on Zoom at least 12 hours a day right now. I'm getting Zoom butt, which is a new kind of condition I hadn't heard of before.
So let me ask you a quick question then. The field, the studios, the firms have had to change almost overnight. What are you seeing from some of your colleagues out there in terms of
Sure.
what they see in how it's going to affect the different firms, what they think it might do to the profession?
Great question. I can tell you that I left school right around the time of the huge recession in the late 80s, 87, 88, 89. There was not a prospect of a job for anybody. I mean, the bottom fell out of the barrel. Most of you are too young to even know it as a news item. We didn't know where we were going to live, what we were going to do. And many people feel that way now. I tell people that, humans are resilient. We're strong. And if we work together and if you take things on yourself, you can make things happen, do good to others. They'll do good for you. Be generous and kind and work like hell. And, things will happen. I also tell them that, and I maybe it was just pure luck or coincidence that I came in a depression, but I realized very quickly that the lowest thing on my priority list should be getting a job. Like that was the bottom thing that I thought about. I didn't think about getting a job at all. And maybe I was lucky that that was actually forced on me because things were hell and whole studios were closing down. So instead I thought to myself, well, what else am I going to do? Well, I need money to eat. So I got to have something. But what I did was I applied myself to thinking, how could I use my expertise that I gained at school to build a life not only that's good for me, but for others, because that's fundamentally what architecture is. We're offering a service to improve the lives of others beyond ourselves. So, I just started thinking about ways to apply myself in all kinds of strange ways that I probably wouldn't have thought of if I entered the market in a good time, where all I was thinking about was getting a job at the best firm, making the most money. Of course, times were different then. The student loans were smaller. You have much larger student loans to deal with. So I appreciate that. But still, be flexible, be dynamic, get creative about what you're going to do, and don't stress out about getting a job. On the other hand, people are going to hire real soon too. It depends on on the market, but we will see some kind of rebound.
Okay, that's a pretty fabulous answer to that, and one that kind of unbelievably inspires me going forward. Craig, we know that you only had a few minutes with us, and I cannot tell you how grateful we are that you volunteered to step in, and I look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully very, very soon.
Yeah, that's great. Well, virtual hug to everybody. It's nice being Zoomy Roomies with you for a few minutes. I wish I had more time. Okay.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much.
Ciao, and good fortune with everything, and happy
Thank
health
you.
to you all. All right,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
So much. Did we lose Corey?
I think we lost Corey. Yeah, his internet connection or computer must have gone down. So I'm gonna try to take the reins here, and maybe Robin, I think. Oh no, he's back. He's back. Corey's back.
Okay.
Corey, can you hear me? You're muted.
He's muted.
Sorry about
There he is.
that. Electricity just went out.
Oh, the electricity just went out. Very nice. Yeah.
That's not what normally happens in Austin. It doesn't normally just
Yeah.
go out like that. So
Okay. Well, we just said goodbye to Craig and Corey, and it's all yours.
Okay, great. Well, sorry to miss the farewell, but yeah, Craig's really great, very friendly, comes by the school often. So I'm sure if you do attend UT, you will encounter him at some point. All right, so I'll jump right into the info session here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and so once again, I just want to remind people that if they have any questions, feel free to use the chat room over on the right, and Uli or Robin will respond in real time. So at any point, feel free to ask a question. I'll try to go slow, but I want to also get through everything, so we have a little bit of time at the end for questions if we get to that. Okay, so as Michelle mentioned, the University of Texas at Austin School of Architecture is made up. It's a little different from other schools. We're not departmentalized, so we're made up of a series of programs, including architecture, landscape architecture, interior design, architectural history, sustainable design, historic preservation, urban design, and community and regional planning. And what that allows, which is I think different from other schools, is that you can very easily take classes in these other programs. A lot of our faculty teach in multiple programs. I teach in architecture and sometimes interior design, for example. But our faculty do teach over a course of different programs. So it's really a nice structure in that way, and very easy to go between the different programs if you want to. A lot of our advanced studios are also taught. Sometimes you can take a landscape architecture studio if you'd like. So all of that's pretty open and cross-disciplinary as well. The structure of the school is run and led by the dean, Michelle Addington. We have 3 associate deans. We have an associate dean for academic affairs. That's Francisco Gomes. And then Associate Dean for Research and Technology, Alan Shearer, and Assistant Dean for Student Affairs, Charlton Lewis. If you have any questions about what they do, feel free to reach out to them. If you do enroll in UT, you'll engage with them in different ways at different times, but they're kind of your first go-to before the dean if you have a question about these specific issues. Of course, Uli, who you've met, is our program director in architecture. And then I'm the graduate advisor in architecture. So I'll do all of your advising for class schedules and these kind of questions. By the way, I've included slides in the background. So these are different slides of either our students engaged in work or the facilities we have in architecture. So this one is Battle Hall, which is the architectural library, which is an amazing resource attached to the School of Architecture. We use this not only for studying and for finding books, but also for events and symposium. And a lot of other students in the university do as well, because it's one of the nicest buildings on campus. Our graduate office is Robin Dusick. She's the Assistant Director of Student Affairs. She's on the call today. And then the graduate program coordinator is Alexa Hatesall, who might join us a little later and is your first go-to if you have any just kind of specific questions about the application process or any kind of funding questions. Any of those would go directly to Alexa first. Although feel free to email.
Corey, Alexa joined us.
Alexa, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Sorry to interject in the middle.
No problem.
Yeah, hey everyone. I was joining another program meeting, so I'm happy to join the MARC1 meeting. So as Corey said, I'm Alexa Hadasal, the graduate program coordinator. So as Corey probably mentioned, as you have questions as new students and then while you're in our program, most of your primary contact is going to be either me or Corey. So I look forward to getting to know all of you and helping you with your degree requirements and progressing through the degree on track and graduating. So welcome.
Thanks, Alexa. So yeah, and one thing I'd like to point out, and if you go on the website and the virtual open house, if you go to the homepage of that website, which we also emailed, you can see different tours of our buildings. The architecture school is really nice because we actually have like 4 buildings. Each of them house different kind of facilities that we use. This one is Sutton. Actually, Sutton is the roof on the left, so this is next door to Sutton. But it looks pretty much the same. And it's our building where we have our digital fabrication resources, also some studios and some seminar rooms. So that's one of our main buildings. We have a technology lab. In that lab, we have everything you would expect, like laser cutters, 3D printers. We also have 2 KUKA robots. These are 9K KUKA robots, the very large ones, with a rotating arm, which allows them to collaborate. We have quite a few uses of these tools. We often have studios that are focused on using robotics, or we have seminars or workshops that use them as well. And the nice thing is that they're fairly open for student use. So if you do have a research project or an independent study, if you propose what you'd like to do, then you're welcome to use them as well. We have a build lab that Craig Dykers mentioned. This is our wood shop. It's a great wood shop, has all the kind of typical tools you'd expect, including woodworking tools, but also a CNC machine, so you can robotic or computer-controlled milling of files, which is in the background there. We also have some vacuum formers and other kind of things. One of the more popular classes is the furniture design class, which students take usually in their last semester because they want to build furniture for their houses or for whatever reason. And they have all these facilities at their hands to produce this really amazing furniture. We have a materials lab, which is maybe the only one I know of in the country that is this way. It's a very large lab that has not only material samples, especially kind of the innovative new materials that are coming not only to market, but also in research and development phase. But we also have workshops in the materials lab that focus on a particular material. So Jen Wong, who's the director of the materials lab, will invite experts on, for example, they're doing hempcrete right now. And so they'll come with the material and offer a workshop to the students to get their hands messy with the material and actually learn how to use it, and also learn how to design with it. We've had other workshops on mushrooms and using those to build projects, and it really kind of runs the gamut of materiality. We have a thermal lab. The director of that is one of the associate faculty here, Matt Ficus. The thermal lab is actually a series of labs, so there's 2 of them that hang off of our West Mall building, and they face directly south. And the use of these labs is to test and design either interior environments or external facade systems. So here you can see an example of an exterior facade system facing south. And by having 2 of these thermal labs, you can actually do 2 different models and then test their performance against each other. So it's a really unique facility that we have that I think is unique to the School of Architecture at UT Austin. We have a Center for Sustainable Development, this is the CSD. Alan Shear is the director of that, and his assistant director is Sarah Wu. They both have produced videos, so if you go to the virtual open house homepage, you can watch their descriptions of what the CSD does. It is a really great resource, not only for faculty, but also for students. They help write grants, they help find money for different research projects you might be interested in or that faculty is working on. And they also create a lot of connections between different disciplines. So whenever we have a grant proposal, we'll first meet with the CSD and Alan Shear and Sarah, and then talk about the expectations of that research, the requirements of it, and then they'll help put us into touch with the right people and create the right kind of community to make that a successful grant. When we do receive a grant, one thing that's really great is we always build in graduate research assistants into those projects. So that would be you all. So if we do have a grant, we'll usually do a call for applications. And then if you're interested in participating on that team, we'll interview you and then hire you. And it's a paid position. It's a really great way, especially if you want to teach one day, to get your hands dirty with some real research at the university level that really is pretty advanced, focused on advanced topics like AI or watershed. So we also have the Center for American Architecture and Design. This is CAD. There right now is a managing director, Leora Vysotsky. And then every year or two, there's a new board of directors, which are made up of different members of the faculty. And it's kind of a rotating group of directors that work on the programming for that year. The CAD is really amazing because it's basically, in addition to our standard lecture series, it offers a whole range of alternative and different symposia and topic presentations on topics. And the background is Time for Timber. This is one of the symposiums that Uli ran 2 years ago. And so these symposiums take on very contemporary and very particular topics that maybe a faculty member is interested in. And then they create and curate this entire symposium by bringing people in from outside the School of Architecture from all over the world to talk about these particular topics. It's also a publishing vehicle, so they do publish their own books. Every one of these symposium also has a call for papers. The participants also write entries, and then at the end of the effort, they produce the book, and then that book is shared widely. It's on Amazon, all the libraries. And so every year we produce one of those. It also runs a bunch of smaller series that are more internally focused. One of the things that's really great is the Friday Forum. So every other Friday, a faculty who's in the middle of research, so not a complete research project, or even students, will propose a topic and then do a very informal discussion about that topic, where everyone comes and participates, offers advice, or kind of reflects on where the research is and where it might go. So it's a really great place to kind of workshop your in-development research topics. And again, it's not just for faculty, it's also for students and anyone else who wants to participate. So that's the Center for American Architecture and Design. We also, I mentioned earlier, the professional residency program. This is really one of our flagship programs at the UT School of Architecture. It's directed by Nicole Wiedemann, who's one of the faculty members here. And then we have 2 other faculties that help her in that endeavor. And the PRP is a program where we help place you in a different firm around the world. So if you're going to participate in the PRP, it's usually a 6-month program. So you'll usually go in the fall and then continue over the summer or over the winter or the spring into the summer. And you actually leave and you go and you work in that office for those 6 months and become a real integral part of the office. One great thing about PRP that's different than maybe a standard internship is that we have a series of requirements and checklists that the office has to meet for us to allow it to qualify as an office that can offer PRP. So for example, you're not just going to sit in the back of a room doing models the entire time. You have to engage clients, you have to engage different aspects of the architecture process during that residency, including design, modeling, all these different kind of features. So it's really great because you become an active participant in the team, not just a member that's kind of a resource for them to make models. The PRP is a coordinated program, so you work with Nicole on your portfolio. You decide which offices you'd like to work for, and then she helps negotiate that kind of relationship. So though you might not always get your first choice, we've placed people in really amazing firms all over the world. You can see this is just a few of them in the background that I pulled from the website, but offices like Shop Architects in New York, or Big, or Allied Works in Oregon, Perkins and Will, Diller Scofidio in New York, Williams Chin. So pretty much, I don't think you can come up with an office that we haven't placed one in, a person in. So it's really a great resource. And a lot of people do end up working at these offices after they graduate from UT. We have an amazing career services program. And Julie will talk just in a second about this program, but I just want to share my experience with this. Faculty do kind of participate in this event And it is one of the biggest events I have ever seen at any school. I've taught at 8 different architecture schools now, and it's really mind-blowing. It's an incredible event. So I'll just go ahead and pass the floor on to Julie, who will talk a little more about career services for you.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen really fast. It says host disabled screen sharing. Is it possible to?
Julie.
Sorry, I'm the host. Sorry, I'm multitasking here. So, can you share now?
Let's see. Yep, that worked. Okay. All right, so I talked a little bit earlier, but our career service office really has 2 priorities. And so the first is working with our employers. So we're out networking with firms, trying to make connections so that when you guys are looking for jobs within those firms, we hopefully have a contact there. It's also whenever, you know, they're looking to hire, they know who to contact at our office. And then our second purpose, obviously, and the largest priority is for our students. So when you're ready to start looking for your employment opportunities, we're here to help provide resources for you guys. So I don't know if y'all saw, but we were just ranked #1 in architecture most hired from. So by Design Intelligence, and they send out this survey to a variety of firms, and it's basically who has hired the most graduates from a specific college in the last 5 years. And so our architecture program was ranked #1.
It's Julie, I can't see your screen. I think the PDF is hung up. I don't know if everyone else is having that issue.
Can we see it?
That's better.
That's better.
Okay, so don't do full screen.
Well,
all right.
It should usually work, but yeah.
I'll try it one more quick time. If it doesn't work, then we'll.
Okay.
Is that working now? Nope.
Just goes black.
All right, well, we'll just do it this way. So and everybody can see it now still, correct? All right, so we survey students 6 months after they graduate. So our latest employment report reported that 93% of our alums had jobs 6 months after they graduated. And then in the previous year, in 2017, we had a 96% rate. So it's a very well-respected school. A lot of firms are seeking to hire grads, so that should encourage you. I also wanted to point out the areas of our full-time employment. So a lot of people, when they're looking at schools, think, or the positions that they get in that state, but we actually have opportunities all over. So you can see students have gone to Seattle and Washington and New York and San Francisco and LA, and of course Austin as well. But we do have a lot of connections, and so those just show, even across the world, that we have students from our program in those areas. Corey touched on this a little bit, but we have an annual career fair every spring. In the past 2 years, we've sold out, so we've had 106 firms attend. And so this is a great opportunity for you to start networking, as well as, just looking through the list of firms, because a lot of these firms are on the list of top Architect 50. So they're well reputable firms, and they're all from a variety of locations as well. So here's the location of the firms from our previous year. And I did want to also point out that even though this is just the national map, many of these firms have offices internationally as well. So this is only showing nationally, but several of these firms actually are international as well. We also have a large number of our students that participate every year. So there was 225 at this year's career fair. So Corey's right, it is a very large event. And at that event, 742 interviews took place. So this is just an encouragement that I hear, when people come in my office all the time, that how did you get your internship or full-time opportunity? And several students do actually get those positions at career fair. But that's not the only thing we do. So throughout the year, we have a variety of workshops and events that we host. So we actually bring in firms to our office to share with you more about the current work they're doing, as well as their hiring needs. And it's also a great opportunity as a student to network with a firm because you're in a smaller space and you can ask questions. So this past year, we had Smith Group and Jacobs and Corgan, SOM, a few of the firms that came in just to give presentations. We also host workshops. So whether you need help with your resume, we do one on that. We do a portfolio. We also do a mock interview workshop before career fair. And at those events, we actually bring in about 15 different firms. So you also have the opportunity to network with firms at those events. And I even had a student recently come by saying that at the mock interview workshop, even before career fair, that she received her job offer just from practicing an interview with a firm rep. So a good opportunity. Yeah, so those are just a few things we have. We also do one-on-one meetings. So in our office, you can meet with me, or we also have a few other staff members that can cover your resume. We can review those portfolios. When you're starting an interview, if you need help with interview tips, negotiation advice, but we're happy to meet with you on anything career related, any questions you have, maybe it's even which firms you're interested in based on the type of work you do. We're happy to brainstorm with you on that. We also have a huge database. So we have about 4,000 to 5,000 employers in our database. So since May alone, we've had about 1,400 job postings. So there is, again, we're trying to be out there and network. And so when firms are looking to hire, they can share those with us as well. Yeah, so to summarize, career fair is a huge opportunity. We host, again, a variety of events throughout the year to help you guys with your employment opportunities. And we host one-on-one meetings. We're glad to meet with you to cover anything you need help with to get that first job or internship. So yeah, we look forward to working with you. Anything
Julie,
I didn't touch
I don't know.
on? Yeah.
Julie, I don't know. I was trying to monitor the chat, so I might have missed it. But did you mention that resource is also available to them after they graduate
Yes.
and once they're alumni for the rest of their
Yeah.
lives?
Correct. And honestly, we have a huge alumni presence. Everybody's connected. So, if you're looking for a job at Snowhetta, for example, we usually have connections in those offices. I know when I went to visit their office, I met with 5 different alums. So it's a huge resource our alumni network is.
Hey, Julie, can you go back to the first slide? I think we missed the first one or two.
Sure. All right, so this one.
Yeah, this one here, yeah. So we're really excited. I think this last year we just were ranked, #1 and most hired from programs in the country, which is really exciting. So, yep.
Yeah, and that one if you didn't see it, but yeah.
Great, thank you, Julie. If you have any other questions for Julie, will you stay on the chat for a little bit and answer those if you can?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to take over the screen again. All right, so just to talk a little bit about the structure of the programs, the Master of Architecture 1. This is one of the studio spaces in Goldsmith Hall, which is our main building of the School of Architecture. We have 2 prerequisites. So before you attend in the fall, you have to complete a calculus and a physics prereq. If you have any questions about whether or not the class you've taken will count as the prereq, just email Alexa or me or Robin. Any of us can answer that question. One thing we've changed this year is some of you are taking the summer component of the MArch-1 program, but you don't have to complete these prereqs until fall 2020, and that's just because of the complexity that the current world is in right now. So don't worry about completing that this summer. Just finish it by the end of the summer, by the first day of fall 2020. And if you have any questions about that, just email us. Again, community college is acceptable online classes. A lot of people take these online. And you can also register for a UT Austin physics or calculus. There are different degree requirements. So the first is the 3-year. This is our standard Master of Architecture program. It's a 3-year program. I'll talk a little more about the details of the different courses, but this sort of gives a good overview. This is online. I think we've also emailed it to you. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to email us. Anything that's in gray can be waived. When you do waive a class, so if you have somewhat of a background and you've taken construction or environmental controls, you can waive those classes and then replace those with an open elective. This program, we've really changed it quite a bit this year in order for two reasons. One, to reduce your credit load, which then decreases your cost of education, but also to allow more flexibility in the program. I think one thing that's really important to us, because we have this non-departmental college and we want you to be able to share in all these experiences with landscape architecture, interior design, we've really worked to open the curriculum so that if you have a very specific interest that you want to do, like digital technology, this open elective system will allow you to navigate the program in a way where you hit that specialty at multiple points throughout your education. On the other hand, if you're not totally sure what you want to do and you want a more broad education, you can use open electives to take classes in different programs. So one landscape program, one CRP elective, one architecture elective, one Latin American studies focused elective, and then you can really expand and broaden your scope of your education. So one thing that's really great about the structure of our degree is that it allows for quite a bit of range in the classes you take. There are not a lot of totally required classes and a lot of open electives. This is your first typical, these are different classes you would take at different years. This is not, you don't have to follow this path. This is just a recommended path. So you can shift some of these around. If you're going to, let us know, let me know as your graduate advisor. Some of them are prerequisites for other class and only offered in the fall or spring. So there are some classes that have to be taken in this kind of schedule, but some can also be taken out of schedule. So just let us know if you have an interest in doing that. There's also an advanced degree. So some of you are admitted to the MArch 2-year advanced standing degree. This is if you have a really broad experience in architecture and have taken a lot of studios in your experience and qualified for the advanced standing through the portfolio review. This is a shorter program. It's 2 years and 60 credits. And again, it's a much more open degree. So you have actually 6 open electives. So one has to be in history theory, or one has to be in history, one has to be in theory, and the rest are all open electives. And I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of these classes in a second. This is your typical structure. So a fall, a spring, and then most of your electives are in the final spring semester. We do have what we call a master's design study option. Most schools call that the thesis. So that's our version of the thesis. A lot of students, it's funny, a lot of students come in with the idea that they want to do an MDS or a master's design study because they have a really pressing issue they want to explore in a more deep way. But one thing I'd like to point out is our advanced studios are so amazing. We have visiting faculty from all over the world, and you also have the opportunity to take these advanced studios in different programs that most students, honestly, when they get to the point of deciding whether they want to do a thesis or not, they see all the suite of advanced studios we offer, they watch the presentations, and then they opt to do that. But it is there if it is available to you if you want to do it. If you do want to do an MDS, you basically meet with 1 or 2 faculty who will be your readers, and you'll work with them on that kind of independent thesis topic. Okay, so our vertical and advanced studios format. We have a very unique structure here at UT in that our first studios are not assigned studios. So the first studios you'll take in the grad program are called vertical studios. And most schools will have that kind of structured where you just, you automatically take studios, and it's not until your advanced studios that you get to choose the studios you want to take. With our program, you get to choose from day 1. So the vertical sequence runs in much the same way as the advanced sequence. You have a studio lottery, which is held the first day of class of each semester. Everyone who's teaching in that vertical sequence does a presentation on the topic of their studio. You would then rank and enter your preferences of your first choice, second choice, third choice, and then we match students with the studios of their preference. I think typically 70% receive their first choice, and if not their first choice, their second choice. So we've had a really good past kind of placement of students in the studios that they wanted to take. The vertical studios are based on what we call the 4 streams. So the goal of a vertical studio is to get you the kind of skills and knowledge you would need to then do advanced studio study. And so there are 4 different categories that we think make a kind of well-rounded architect. So the first is ordering systems. This involves geometry, number, structure, composition. We then have a category called human factors, which is more about program and cultural diversity. The third is construction, which is about tectonics, infrastructure, building services. And the fourth is context, so political, economic context, landscape, climate context. And the goal of these is not to take really the ones that you want to take, is to take the ones that you need more development in. So we do have something called a portfolio review, where after your first vertical, for those in the 3-year program, we'll review your portfolio and make suggestions on, maybe next semester you should take a vertical studio that focuses mostly on human factors, for example. The studio, when the faculty present their studio, they'll actually present the percentages of each of these categories they expect their studio to tackle. So a studio might say, my studio is going to be 50% ordering systems, 20% human factors, 20% construction, 10% context. And by knowing that, you can sort of tailor and curate your experience through the vertical studio in a way that you, by the end of it, you have a complete kind of understanding of all of these different categories. Then after vertical, you enter advanced studios. There are 2 advanced studios that you'll take. And once again, we have a huge suite of different advanced studio options. You can either take studios in different programs or entirely architectural studios. Robin might be able to answer on the chat, but I think we offer up to 15 a semester of advanced studios. And so you do have a wide range of different options. We always have a visiting studio critic who comes from somewhere else in the world, or could be from anywhere. Our last ones were from Greece. We have this year Ed Ford, who's from University of Virginia. And so that also varies per year. And we have a really great experience bringing people in. And then we also have integrative studio. So integrative studio is it's our comprehensive studio. This is a partner studio, so you'll take this with someone else in your cohort. And one really great thing about this is that you really learn how all the components of a building go together within one design project. And a lot of partnerships have actually led to firms. So I don't know if Craig and Elaine met in integrative studio, but it happens quite a bit where people will partner, work on their project, and then immediately launch a firm not too long after. One thing I forgot to mention about vertical sequence that's really great, let me just go back a slide here, is that when you enter vertical, you either it's your first studio or it's your 3rd studio if you're in the 3-year program in the fall, or in the fall semester. And so what's great about that is that you get mixed immediately in with people who've already been here a year, and you get mixed in with people who are in the advanced program and also people without a background. And the point of that is you start to exchange different ideas and really learn from each other. One thing that's really important in the School of Architecture is studio culture. We think it's very important that people connect and form like real human relationships. And so our studio culture is really focused on people working in the School of Architecture, working in their studio space, and engaging with each other, sharing knowledge with each other. So you'll have people who have a background in biology, no architectural experience whatsoever, taking a studio with someone who has 4 years of architecture and is quite knowledgeable about architecture, but maybe not biology. And so those kind of meshes that come together, those kind of networks, really propel designs forward in a really interesting way. And that's really how innovation happens. It's not through repeating what you already know, but for integrating knowledge that you don't know into your design project. So again, that's a really great thing about the vertical sequence. Okay, so we have professional foundation classes. You'll notice I add a 3-year there if it's part of the 3-year program. If there's not a 3-year, that means it's not part of the 2-year advanced standing program, just to clarify what that means. There's architectural drawing, digital fabrication, technical communications, professional practice, which is taught by the lawyer that Michelle mentioned earlier, and then site design. We also have a building systems curriculum. So this is EC 1 and 2, which cover heat, air, water, and light, sound, and electricity. There's also a construction class and then 2 structures classes. If you have an advanced degree or advanced standing, a degree in architecture, then you'll most likely just take structures 2. We also have a history and theory curriculum, which starts with world architecture and goes to 1750. And then a second class, which takes on the Industrial Revolution all the way to the present. We have an amazing architectural theory and history faculty, and they cover historic classes, but also a whole suite of contemporary issue classes. So there's the core contemporary issues classes, and then we have a bunch of electives that are either history or theory that focus on very specific issues like remittent landscapes or building technology or Aldolfos, for example. We have 6 required electives for the 2-year advanced standing and 5 for the 3-year program. 1 has to be a history elective, 1 has to be a theory elective. And theory is a pretty open topic. My class, for example, which is on computational design, looks at the theory of computation. That counts as a theory class. So that's a pretty wide-ranging idea and topic. We then have open electives. And one other exciting thing about being at UT, and because it's such a large school, we allow 2 of these open electives to be taken outside the School of Architecture. So if you're really interested in something that might be part of your thesis, for example, then you can take an open elective that relates to that thesis and helps you gain knowledge in that field that we might not be able to do in the School of Architecture. We have an organized course waiver process. So all of the classes listed here can be waived for both 2-year or 3-year students. So if you've had any of these classes, you can replace these classes with an open elective. And so by doing that, you increase even more the different options you have within the program. I think most students are able to waive, unless you have no background in architecture, are able to waive quite a few of these classes. One of the classes, technical communications, is the only one that can be waived with professional experience. So if you have worked in an office and you know Revit, for example, then you can actually waive technical communications and replace that as well with an open elective. The process involves you basically fill out a DocuSign power form, enter the syllabus and coursework that you've completed. The waiver then gets routed to the instructor of the class. They're the ones who do the waiving for the class. And then that routes to Alexa and myself, and then we approve it. And then your degree planner changes, program of work changes from that class to an open elective. By the way, in the background, you can see in some of these images, this is a new technology space, digital classroom space in our West Mall building, which is one of our 4 buildings at the School of Architecture. And this was newly renovated last year. This is usually where we hold the open house. So imagine yourself sitting in those chairs. That's where we usually are. But these are really amazing facilities. They're state of the art. The screen in the background is capable of having interactive discussions with people all over the world. So we've had workshops where the workshop instructor is in New York and all the students are here, and so we can teach remotely. So this kind of Zoom format is not new to us, and we're actually pretty prepared for it with these classrooms. Okay, so your first registration, if you are 3-year without a background in architecture, you'll take the summer introductory studio and architectural drawing. Unfortunately, we're hoping that would be on campus, but just out of an abundance of caution, we've decided to hold that online this year. The reason we're doing that right now is it gives us plenty of time to organize the class. I'm teaching the introductory studio, so I have quite a bit of experience teaching online. I've taught online classes for 6 years, and in addition to in-person classes. So I'll be organizing that class and working with you if you are taking the introductory studio in the summer. The nice thing about that is it will give you some time to move here, find an apartment, and also to complete your prerequisites if you haven't done that yet. So one thing I'll also point out is it's a credit, no credit class. So, you know, it shouldn't be a heavy burden on you. It should really just be an introduction to thinking differently about architecture. Really, the goal of the class is to break down your preconceptions of architecture and start to help you think abstractly about space and volume and program. In your 3-year program, if you don't do the summer, you'll start in the fall with a vertical studio, So you'll come to school, you'll sign up for vertical, you'll watch the presentations, you'll choose a vertical, and then you'll also take architectural theory, construction, and one required elective. And so we want that required elective in the first semester so that you have an option to take a class that really interests you, which might then feed into how you move through the program and kind of start your trajectory through it. In the 2-year program, you'll also take vertical studio, architecture theory, and then you'll take world architecture, which is the second history class, and then a required elective. We have certificate programs here. So this is a really great opportunity at the School of Architecture. These are programs that are in addition to the Master of Architecture degree. So if you want to focus on historic preservation, you can complete the Master of Architecture, and then within that degree, through the required electives and the different classes you choose, you can achieve a historic preservation certificate. You can also do that in sustainable design with an emphasis or a specialization, and one is just a little more classwork than the others. We then have a graduate, which is a UT-wide certificate in Latin American architecture. And so you can complete this certificate, which actually goes on your transcript when you graduate. So you'd receive an MArch 1 degree as well as a certificate in Latin American architecture. If you have any questions about these, feel free to ask in the chat, or you can email directly Benjamin, Matt, or Fernando, and they'd be happy to answer your questions. One great thing about the School of Architecture is we have quite a bit of travel. We have a Europe program that's in the fall, and we offer this every year. Students actually travel around Europe, and then we have a home base, which is in Paris, in the Bellevue School of Architecture, and students actually complete their studio work within that program. The Europe program also has additional seminars so that you complete degree requirements as you're doing the program. We often have a summer in Munich. These all vary, by the way, so the Architecture Europe program has been here for a while, but new programs come and go depending on faculty interest and student interest. So next year it might be Iceland, it might be Galapagos. So there's all these different options that kind of happen throughout your time at UT. We also have a very robust advanced studio series of trips. So our advanced studios frequently, I think over half of them, travel around the world. This year, before we weren't allowed to travel, we went to Japan, students went to Ecuador, and all over the world. So Iceland and London as well. And that also varies per studio and per semester. So these change annually. We have travel scholarships, so you don't have to pay completely for them. You apply for these travel scholarships, and these are the times that you apply. In the fall, you apply for winter, spring and the summer. And then some of the studio trips are sponsored or receive additional funding through our MeBain funding. So again, when a faculty presents that studio during the lottery, they'll tell you how much funding it has, or if it's a sponsored studio, so that you can make up your mind whether or not that is an option. This is the travel from 2018-19. So as you can see, we travel all over the world: Australia, North America, Europe. We have a great Latin America program, so we travel there quite a bit, South America, all over. And this includes not only residencies, but also advanced studios, as well as independent classes. So students can also do an independent study, which travels and apply for funding for that. A lot of different ways for funding. We have recruitment scholarships and fellowships. Those are on a rolling basis. So if you have any questions about that, you can email myself or Alexa. Some of you have already received these. Others might receive them before the April 15th deadline. One thing I will mention is that if you need more time to decide after April 15th, please just let us know. I know it's a hard time for a lot of people, so just email us separately about that. Again, these do not appear on cash, so if you have any questions about whether you received one, you can email myself or Alexa. We also have continuing scholarships and fellowships, and this is a really great resource. So that first round of funding is not the only round of funding. During your time here, you can apply for additional, or apply from the beginning for scholarships and fellowships that you didn't receive before. And we review these every semester, or I guess each fall, so once a year. And this is a high percentage of acceptance of these fellowships, and we have quite a bit of money for continuing students. This last year, we had 70 architecture continuing scholarships. So if you imagine each class is about 40, so that is a significant amount of the students receive funding through these continuing scholarships and fellowships. We also have TA positions. TA positions are great because they come with a stipend, so you get paid for them. They also come with a tuition reduction benefit, which is in addition to your in-state tuition rate. And then you also receive health insurance. So these are really great positions. And little over 50% of our students are TAs, which does not mean only 50% receive them. A lot of people do not apply for them. So even a higher percentage of students receive TAs. If you're willing to, you basically, when you apply, you rank which TA position you want. If there's only one that you want, your chances of getting it might be less. But if you're open to 2 or 3 options, then your chance of getting a TA position are actually quite high, which is great. You can't be a TA in your fall semester, so anytime after that, you can be a TA. There are also GRA positions, which I mentioned earlier. So these are research assistant positions, and they're handled by individual faculty. So if a faculty or even a supervisor has a research project that requires student assistance, they'll send a call for applications, and then people can apply for these GRA positions, which are also paid positions. We don't deal with Texas residency, so if you have any questions with Texas residency, this is the website. Alexa or Robin can send you the link to this, and they'll answer your questions. So if any questions about whether or not you're a Texas resident or how you become one, you'll have to address with them. And then I think that's everything right on time, 1:30. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And we're going to have a question and answer session in half an hour, and there's a different Zoom link for that. And so I expect that to be a more informal discussion where you're welcome to chime in as you want to. If there are any very quick questions now, I'd be happy to field those. Otherwise, we can start again, take a quick break, and start in half an hour.
Corey, there's also the question, will we be able to upload this PDF of the presentation to the virtual open house website?
Yeah, that's right. So we're recording it right now. And yeah, we'll format it as soon as this meeting is over. Well, after the Q&A, the next Q&A, and we'll have it on.
And also the PDF.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a video. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Well, maybe we should just take a 30-minute break so everyone can go and grab some lunch. And then we'll meet back at the other Zoom link, which we emailed you in 30 minutes at 2 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. I wish I could have met you personally in conversations, but we'll talk again in 30 minutes. And thank you, Michelle, for joining us today.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye, everybody.